Welcome back, everybody, to Randy.
I'm Steve.
This is Bible Over a Beer.
We got that backwards.
How do you like that?
We're off to a great start.
Oh, awesome.
I'm
awesome.
Randy.
And I'm Steve.
But you all knew that our million subscribers.
Million, yeah, or
Yep.
a million, or maybe two.
Something like that.
Changing this up a little bit. Watching over the videos and talking with friends that have been watching it. I don't think we're engaging folks, and our conversation got more about trying to teach, and that's not our point. Our point was to converse between the two of us and welcome you into it virtually. So we're going to do a little bit different. We'll see how it goes. I think it's, I think it looks fun.
Yeah, I think we needed to do it. It was getting a little
Well,
dry.
you were taking. I mean, you had a big task every week. He's like being teacher, and neither of us are teachers. We're barely grasping the concepts, and which is good. That's what it's for.
Even like in school, when we were told to like take notes,
Huh?
I'd have trouble skipping a word.
Oh,
I ended up copying word for word. Like,
I totally
that's
understand.
not notes.
I totally understand. So,
but yeah,
without much further ado, I'm going to just introduce the new outline. So we're going to do a summary, and we'll rotate that. So what and I mean by summary, it's maybe more of a paraphrase, possibly. It may get in depth over time, but it's basically what we're reading, and then what it was kind of about, and then we'll each have at least 3 points of interest we wanted to take away. That's kind of our homework to each other, which is good for you to follow. And then kind of what's the point? That's, again, this is a rough draft. We might change it. And then finally the takeaway. Sometimes 3 and 4 might be the same. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'm tasked with this summary to start, which I'm excited about because, and I started out, my first part was like I started taking notes, and I had a lot of notes. Then I broke them down into these notes, which are
Same with me.
4 pages. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't. A summary is not. There's a lot in here, but again, it's the outline of what it's about in the conversation about it.
And you've already read it.
Or you will be when you watch this.
So we don't need to go through chapter by chapter.
Yeah, and it's a discussion because what are we supposed to get out of it? What's it about? And it opens up a conversation. So what we are on is we're in 2 Chronicles chapters 1 through 18, the first half. And this is my attempt. It basically goes from the kings of, if emphasis is on the kings of Judah and over in Jerusalem, the house of Judah, which include Benjamin, and then obviously the Levites joined in after a bit. But it's in Jerusalem's where they're at, and it went from King Solomon to his son Rehoboam to his son Abijah to Asa to Jehoshaphat. So those are the 4 kings, and if we remember from our little sheet, the green side, this is that these guys are all still pretty good.
Yeah, not perfect, but.
No, I'm just looking at so Asa. They really, it's interesting because I see Asa and Jehoshaphat. I don't see Solomon on here, which that's not important. It's the Judah. We remember from reading this from Samuel's to Kings, and that
Solomon fell at the end.
Well, we're gonna get to it.
He did pretty good, and then
Yep. So
off the cliff you went. So
I'll do my best at the summary without getting too detailed. But it starts out with King. It's David passes. We learned that in the last video, and you want to read that or go back and watch that.
Yep.
And then his task, is he's going to build the temple of God. We thought David was going to do it. David thought he was going to do it. Solomon's going to do it. It took him 23 years to build it. One of his most well-known things was he asked for wisdom. He prayed to God for wisdom, and he had everything to pray for, and God was impressed with that. So God gave him not only wisdom, the riches, and I think he was the richest of all the kings in the Bible. So rich, in fact, that Queen of Sheba came through and was so impressed with him, and what became so impressed with him, he answered every question she had, and she brought a bountiful of spices and stuff he's never had. And he did good. It took him 23 years to build, and then he did. We'll learn in our discussions. That's one of the points, but he did in his older years kind of fall away from the Lord a little bit. He started marrying again with other wives or other tribes outside. And I don't
know what brought that on.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of our it's a discussion point I'll have. And then his son, when he passed, his son Rehoboam and that's kind of why I brought it up. Rehoboam he wasn't bad, but so at this point we learned in the last chapter that Israel kind of split. Well, they did now because Jeroboam. Well, we didn't learn this as much, and I won't go too much into it. You can watch other videos. But Jeroboam was one of the kings of Israel, and he separated out, and we learned. I think that was in Kings. Well, they didn't really go into much detail here, but at this point, he learns that Solomon has passed, so he's going to go approach his son Rehoboam. Rehoboam took counsel from both his elders and the folks he grew up with, and ended up taking the counsel of the elders instead of the young kids instead of the elders, and basically said, your father was, my father was, mean to you. I'm going to be meaner. I'm going to treat you like, all kind really bad. So, and then he went down, trying to think, he was in power for about 17 years. He was 40 years old when he took, because King Solomon must have lived to an old age. And I don't think Solomon or Rehoboam may have been the oldest. I'm not certain. But then comes Abijah. He only reigns for 3 years, but he was noted as being good. And it kind of goes into Jeroboam and Israel and how they didn't follow the Lord. So Jeroboam, after the Solomon thing, he tried attacking, and the Lord was on the side of Judah, as we learned. And then after Abijah, there's not a lot on him. There's Asa, which we learned was really good. He was good in the Lord's eyes. And Azariah, the son of Obed, a prophet, shares God's word. Hey, you stay with me, and I will be with you. It's a theme we've read in all the stuff. And so he did. But later in his years, he looked to Israel to help. Actually, sorry, he looked at Ben-Hadad for an alliance, and then physicians for his feet. So God kind of stepped away from him, and he didn't end well. And then it comes into Jehoshaphat, a name I like to say. And he started off good as well. He joined forces with King Ahab in Israel. Well, he started off good, and then the houses amended a little bit, and he joined. Ahab asked him to join and go to war against Egypt and the other countries that were attacking him. And he said, "This seek the Lord's counsel," and the Lord, I don't think King Ahab had wanted to, but he's like, I have my prophets. They all say do it, and he said, "Don't you have
40
one?
prophets?
Yeah, 40 prophets. Don't you have one?" And they brought up Micaiah. He said he always rules in his favor against him, and as far as the summary goes, he basically originally said yes, and he said, "Don't lie to me," and he said, "No, do not go." And of course, did they listen? They didn't listen, so they go to battle, and unfortunately, Ahab. They kind of dressed up in battle, and we've talked about this in the other chapters. But they disguised Jehoshaphat, kind of dressed as a king, and Ahab not, and they went to pursue him. And Jehoshaphat was like, "Oh my God, help me!" And the Lord provided him shelter. And then they realized it wasn't him, and some random guy shot Ahab, and he died. And that was a long-winded summary.
Yeah, you pretty much hit it. And what I like about the Second Chronicles is, again, we're repeating, right, what we read in Kings.
Yep.
There's some new stuff in here and there, but mostly the Kings are good. I think that's a good example. I think the author of Chronicles, who we don't know who it is, was trying to, tell the good side of the Kings mostly, and you're hoping that the future king, the king who comes along, is going to be the great king. Well, right? We're leading up to that at this point.
An interesting side note on this, I was been watching a lot of and doing a lot of just side research on some of this stuff, and I came across a few videos. There's some really good Christian teachers out there that go up against atheists or agnostics, and an interesting point. Why is there 4 gospels? Why is there if God's true, why isn't there miracles all the time? And it was a pretty good point. I mean, this is purpose driven. There's a reason why it was the way it was. Why did Jesus speak in parables? And we haven't gotten there yet, but we're humans and we're human form. We can't understand, so he has to give us scenarios that we can understand. And it kind of goes back to, if miracles were happening every day, would it be godly? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the stories, everybody. So if it was the same, you wouldn't take it. I don't think you would believe it as much, as because you're not. It's the exact copy. I like the fact that we're getting different context. So
yeah,
with that, kind of segueing back into it, it's interesting. perspectives from Chronicles versus Kings and Samuel. So
Yeah, and all men are sinners.
Oh,
You know, we're gonna have a king coming up here who does not sin. The great king, right? The king.
the only king, yes.
But as godly as these men are, some of them more than others, you know, like Solomon, I lived pretty much a great life, but he was not perfect. He sort of fell off at the end and committed sin. And
yeah, he started off. He started off like most kings, especially on the side of Judah.
like his dad, David, you know, he started off like his dad, and
Well, they all start off following the Lord, and when, you know, and times are good. They once they build their kingdoms up, they kind of walk away.
is
So
that an example of a lot of people, though? Including
yeah, well,
myself.
that's kind of why. So this is what's tough
Yeah.
because it's you know, it was pretty easy to understand. I think
Yeah.
this chapter, what, you know, like my what was the point in my takeaways are kind of that. But so just jump into it. I mean, like, what did you find? Because it's tough to find stuff.
It's interesting. I want to say something real quick that you just said. It's interesting because there was a couple times in my life, and actually, the last time was last year, where I actually said to my wife, things seem to be going so good for us, almost a little too easy. And then some things started bad started to happen shortly after. I've had that happen
Yeah.
a couple of times. It's like you take it for granted, you know what I mean? And you do forget that, you know, there's a greater power out there that is watching over you, but at the same time,
Well, it's hard to say because I would say, I mean, I'm not sure we're going to go with that, but I do understand when it goes because I'm always worried about that. I'll be honest with you. I've said this many times. I mean, and I'm making a habit now, especially now, which is weird because I've always been a Christian. But now I just make it more of a habit of being thankful for everything, not just in the bad times.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spent, and I think a lot of Christians do, we feel like things could always be better, but holy mackerel.
yeah,
Counting all my blessings, it's a song, right? Counting all my blessings, because I don't even know how many blessings I have. There's more than I can even count, and it's true because we don't realize that there's so many small things. I mean, small things. I mean, just your everything. Just
you think of a miracle as that man can't walk and now he can walk. We don't remember that there's tiny little small miracles.
well, coincidence. It all happened, and all of a sudden the big picture is wow.
Yeah.
Which you didn't see it as you're there. So
Yes.
that's that's one of the things. And I noticed then also, I'm hoping you are as you're reading with us, is the discernation. I mean, especially in our climate right now, it's going to date us because we're in a bad presidential runs. But it's
going to
just
get
not
even nastier.
Well, it's going to get nastier, but more so, not to get political on it, but I mean, just the world is, what is right is wrong now, and what is wrong is kind of right. So I don't know if I noticed it as much before.
And I really pray for the people that don't see it, or they see it and still go with it anyways.
Well, we're learning. We're seeing. We saw hold our beers. We had those in our last video, a lot of our old videos, especially, and we talked about Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it's amazing because we're reliving that now. But so that's what my worry is. I mean, God's not going to flood us again and remove the world. Maybe it's fire,
Right.
but there's our journey is to understand it and hope that others do, and hope that others do, and hope that others do, because at the end of the day, we want to fall. It's His word. He created us, so we can't be humans and say, well, I can follow this, but not that. It's not our plan. And that's the stuff I struggled with that before. You want to be accepting because we are. I mean, I don't like to judge. So, I mean, we're kind of digressing, or not digressing, but we're kind of expanding our things. But kind of circling back to, I don't know if I want to put you on the spot if you had interest in, because I have some interest.
Yeah, my biggest thing was Solomon asking for wisdom. I mean, how many people, if given, a genie in a bottle and you got some wishes,
You're going to be king.
is that something that would pop into most people's minds? I don't think so. I think people are going to ask for money. They're going to ask for wealth.
Power over their enemies.
They're going to ask for a mansion. They're going to ask for like the things that really don't matter in life, unfortunately.
So
And instead of wisdom, peace on earth, having wishes for others that, there's no more hunger in the world. How many people would actually do that if confronted?
when you knew that these days they knew that they had the prophets that are talking with God,
Right.
and they knew that there's probably going to be this is going to come true for them.
That is
So
such a
that's a different perspective, which is interesting because that's my first one.
Yeah.
But I have a spin on it a little bit. When we read through the Kings, it was fully, Solomon's whole idea. Now we learned in Chronicles that David kind of took credit for telling his son to ask for wisdom. So I thought that was a different perspective. And, either way, what I just said is these guys were walking and talking with God, at least their prophets were.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew that they're going to find favor or not find favor. So there's a potential, whatever they prayed for was going to happen. So he still took wisdom.
And the fact that he had the wisdom to ask for wisdom.
Oh, I saw that.
I'd be thinking my first thought would be Lamborghini. Not back then, but
No, I know what you mean.
well, maybe back then. I don't know, right? You could
Whatever
ask
they
for
had.
anything.
Yeah, really fast camel, a triple humped camel. 5,000 donkeys. So,
all right, yeah. Putting your faith in the Lord. What is the recurring theme that we read over and over again in each book? Is that when you put your faith in the Lord, when the people put their faith in the Lord, good. When things are going good, what happens? Like I've talked about, you sort of start to just slack off, right? And bad things start to happen.
You ignore it.
And, again, that's just a reoccurring theme in here. And I'll read this real quick. During Asa's reign in Judah, when faced with facing the massive Ethiopian army, Asa cries out to God for help. Right? Things aren't going his way. So who does he ask for help?
God.
He asks for God, and guess what? He's there. He's there when he needs them, but they're not there for him when things are going great.
Correct.
And that's you can sort of relate that to even people in your life. Especially your loved ones and things like that.
People are so guilty for it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. How often do you run to mom and dad or somebody to help when you need help, but you don't really contact them any other time?
Yeah. So if you're ever watching, we can kind of relate because, I mean, not that she needs anything ever, but the only time she really reaches out is, hey, can't you
oh, I got your back, girl. You reach out to Uncle Randy.
There you go. She never asks for anything. It's always small, but it's like you could call me and say hi sometimes, even your mom. So, anyways, but yeah. So
kids don't call; they text.
Correct. Well, either way, she doesn't.
Even back in these days, people didn't call each other.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Smoke
they couldn't.
signals or something.
So I'll lead off with my second one. So why did Rehoboam not make peace with Israel in Jeroboam? I thought that was, and I don't know if I know the answer. That was something I found that was interesting.
I never even thought about that. That
Well,
never even crossed my mind, but that's such a great point.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the answer, but I read, and I think in that Yellow Bibles for Dummies book, and again, it's just a reference. I don't know how accurate it is, but it kind of surmised that Solomon in his older days fell away from the word, and he wasn't during the time when Rehoboam was growing up. He wasn't being taught the law. He didn't come up with the morals that he should have. So think about it. Let me know if you anybody has an idea. Leave us a comment. We want a conversation started. That's the point of this. Is a conversation for us to discuss it, because one and more are gathered.
Yep.
So it could be virtually. I'm not certain if it has to be live.
I love the last chapter that we read, which is where we went up to chapter 18. We'll continue in the next video, but chapter 18 ends with Jehoshaphat's alliance with Ahab, and they talked about the 40 prophets. And, I think it was an angel of God that put a lying tongue in the 40 prophets so that they wouldn't be able to tell the truth. So these were just basically yes men. But then you have Micah that comes along, and he actually tells the truth, which is, don't go to war. God does not have your back on this. Well, how do you know who to believe in an instance like that? How does a human being know? Because really, if I were to ask 40 people versus one, and 40 say yes and one says no, usually kind of majority rules, you think, yeah, well, they got to know what they're talking about, right? Was he supposed to just somehow know, or was just God's plan to sort of do this to him?
So I think it's the bigger picture. What some of the details we didn't go into, and you'll read. and we learned about this in the other books. Israel, part of their jealousy in splitting away from Judah and Jerusalem, they built, and they didn't want their people to kind of get usurped and go back into like follow David, or David's like Solomon, and I guess it was Solomon. They built these golden calves, the place to worship, and then they stopped following the Lord, and it started switching over years to calf worship. So they're not following what God's plan was or God's law. So I think it was divine intervention. These prophets were, because he even mentions this Micaiah never answers. He never rules in my favor. Well, why is he not? Well, because Ahab's not following in God's favor. We learned Ahab was a horrible king. I mean, he was a Machiavellian. He married Jezebel.
Yeah.
So
he was doomed.
Yeah. So I think at least that's my take on it. So.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, that's sort of like, again, this was just, it's a little bit of an easier book. I think once we get through Chronicles, we'll be on to...
Oh, geez, I don't know now. I thought
I don't either. I wish I hadn't brought it up.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Well, I do have one more item because we have to have three, and if you didn't, that's no big deal. But we've talked about it. All the kings in Judah in this, they all start off good, and then they slide. God still favors them because He's promised David and his lineage is through the house of Judah. So,
right.
But we talked about it, and that's also. Well, I'll leave it there. That was one of the things I noticed is they when the things are, first starting out, they're following the Lord. Asa retaught Jerusalem or Judah and Benjamin God's word. And they followed it. They started the sacrifices again and doing the right ceremonies and and they started getting better and better. Because it slid during Solomon, and then I think Rehoboam didn't follow as much, and then Abijah started a little bit. Asa started better, and then.
Yeah, I'd like to know why. Why?
Well, I just think it's life. The same way with us too. I mean, when times are good, you don't.
Yeah, that's what I said, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, you do. You get lax.
Yeah.
You get lax. You get fat. You get comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's never a good place to be. It seems like.
No, fortunately, I have an inward desire of like, and it's also a crutch too. Never satisfied. I'm at with me and myself.
That's a human thing that a lot of people suffer from.
Yeah, and mine can be to a cost. I mean, it's of nature. I don't know if it's a family thing, a people pleaser, but I use it to good sometimes, and sometimes it's a hindrance to me.
Yeah.
So
you think that at my age I would have learned by now that so many things. It almost seems like it's better to dream about stuff than to actually possess it.
Oh,
because I can't tell you how many times
I've
had
new car thing,
buyer's remorse where I just thought. This is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then once you have the object for a week or two, you're like, did I really need this? Did I really need to spend the money on this? And even at my age of 55, I still think about things. It's like you don't learn.
Yeah. Well, we're both in a hobby that, behind Randy, where, the fish tanks, aquarium, salt water, just word of the wise, just stay away. It's like the best, most interesting creatures. I mean, it's just a fascination of what God has done. You have a little section of God's creation. I love it. In freshwater, I was in it too, and I'm going to get back into because it's easier. But back to the buyer's remorse. I mountain bike, and I have many mountain bikes. Mm-hmm. I don't have any. I mean, the only one I don't know if I have buyer's remorse, but last year I bought an e-bike because of just moving back to Pennsylvania and the hills here, and I want to get in shape, and it helps. I still love riding it, but I'm kind of buyer's remorse now because now that I'm actually in good shape,
you're not using it.
I'm not. Well, I put it away for the winter because it's winter, but
sure. Yeah,
I'm not certain. It's nice to have for so if Randy wants to try, he can keep up with me because it's an e-bike, but it is an awful expensive backup e-bike. So. But anyway, so anything else you found interesting in this?
No, well, like I said, because it is such a repeat of what we've already had before, that's pretty much what I've gotten. Yeah,
so my things are, what was the point with what we read? What was our takeaway? And then the last, that's points 3 and 4 of our new format. And mine are the same.
Yeah.
If stay with God, stay in God's good. I shouldn't say good graces, but keep reading the Bible, follow His. Mm-hmm. We're Christ is we already know that he came and he paid the ultimate sacrifice for it. So, we don't have to. The stuff we're learning now is good rules to go by, but we know that belief in Jesus is the way. But so keep reading. So I mean that's my takeaway, because if you don't,
you go to. No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, we're not kidding. I mean there's been a lot of
Before Steve and I started this, Steve had asked me if I pray.
Yeah.
And I've always been a believer, but not like not a going to church type thing. Just yes, I know there's a God. That's pretty much all I could tell you. There is a God. Jesus Christ is our Savior. But yes, I pray every day. I find myself praying sometimes morning, afternoon. I pray at nighttime.
Which is awesome, man.
Yeah, I just take a moment. It just hits me. It's like I need to pray right now, and I'll pray for somebody or something. And even for wisdom, I pray for wisdom because, like I said, I've had this idea in my head. I'm not even going to bring it up here. I have this idea and this want of something that's super, super expensive. And I just I calm myself. I take a moment and I pray, and that it goes away. Because I know it's a stupid thing. I don't need it. I don't need to spend the money. It'll sit. I'll use it for a week, and then I'll never use it again. And I just find it so calming.
Yeah,
it does help.
I wish I had I pray the same, and I need to start doing that, because I do. Along the lines that this year I tend to, we're in a economy right now where you get a lot of 0% interest, and they're not super expensive things, but I keep finding myself, okay, I need this and I want this. And I swore this year that it was going to be wait until I finish the e-bike payoff, which it's almost done. But
sure,
I usurped that, and I even prayed on it, but I didn't follow my own answers. So, but yeah, even that. So back to the prayer.
We can't take it with us. That's another point.
Well, yeah, that's true. And we do get we did get kind of caught up in physical,
and if the wife lives longer than me, she can live on the street.
That's
with no money.
Exactly. But yeah, and back to the praying though too, because that's one of the things too. I've always been inspired that we probably should add that to it. As if we ever feel it, to add this to it, maybe at the start or even at the end one of these days. So, I mean, that's one of the things, because I'm not a big prayer.
Out loud.
Out loud, yeah.
Yes.
It is tough. And I spent years in church with my buddies. My buddy Daryl, he prays awesome. So he sets and I don't mean to put you on the spot, buddy, but and even you, Marshall Hill and Mackerel, he prays. I mean, it's amazing the stuff you guys can say and think of. I just feel stupid, and I know that's not what you're. It's not to be. Yeah. It's a matter of something simple.
I'd have to have something so memorized that. Yeah.
But that's so you and I are the same. We're both wrong. Yeah.
Mine would probably sound something like, if you'd watched Ben Stiller and Meet the Parents, when he was asked to pray, and because Greg's Jewish, Dad. What, Jews don't pray? And then he makes up this whole funny.
Yeah, that's the best. Well, and the funny thing is, it's the thought that counts. It's not the words that come out. God knows your heart, right? So, I think, this is, like I said, this has been a pretty short video. We've heard it before. We have 36 chapters in this, so we have 19 through 36.
Yeah. So we'll do the second half next time around.
Yep, and I just hope that sorry, I'm rambling and thinking, and they're not coming out the same as what my brain's thinking.
Ramble.
I hope you're joining with us, because the point is, again, it's not like to become famous. It's more about to spread the word. Use our conversation.
Yes.
It's still been a pleasure. I'm glad we're
keeping it going. Slow but sure. We're keeping it going.
Nobody knows, you all come back now. You hear?
All right.
Salute.
See you next time.